The Midrash says that our three forefathers each had a specific way with which to relate to Hashem. And in fact, Avraham called Hashem a har, a mountain. Yitzchak referred to Hashem, to God above, as a sadeh, a plain field, whereas Yaakov referred to Hashem, to God above, as a bayit, a home, a house, a lodging. Why? What is the significance of each one ascribing Hashem, God, according to these specific descriptions? I heard an explanation by Rav Chagai Londin as follows. Avraham refers to God as a mountain. Why? Because a mountain is something that we have to conquer. We have to go through a conquest. We have to drive through it. We have to overcome it in order to arrive at its peak and its revelation. Avram was involved in revealing to the world monotheism. He had to fight, and he had to rise and raise himself above the rest of human creation to demonstrate to the world that indeed there is only one God that we should be subscribing to. His fight, his efforts were mountainous, were monumental, if you may, and therefore difficult to arrive at, but nonetheless worth the struggle. Yitzchak, on the other hand, not the prototype of monotheism, followed Abraham's example, and therefore he called God a field. His was a playing field. After Abraham, his father, plowed the way, the means of arriving at the belief in one God, Yitzchak would now have to drive that belief, that faith, that theology forward. And therefore he called God a field in order to plow and consistently continue to disseminate that philosophy, that theology, that subscribing to belief of God forward throughout humanity, much like a field is plowed and tended to in order to assure that its fruits would arrive as well. And finally, Yaakov, Jacob, our forefather, refers to God as a home, a house. But what kind of house? The parsha, this week's Torah portion, tells us that Yaakov is described as Ish Tam Yoshev Ohalim. The home, the house that Yaakov is described as lodging in is an ohel. An ohel, a tent, refers or offers a person protection, but at the same time it is a very temporary dwelling. It is not completely fallible. It is not completely foolproof and weatherproof. It is not completely protected. Therefore, it maintains its temporary ascriptments. It maintains its temporary characteristics. And for that reason, Yaakov understands that in this world, relating to God, while there is no question that God is our home, nonetheless relating to God, furthering our nature or our nurturing our relationship with God, our rapport with God, requires our effort, our strife, our eagerness, our earnestness to make and to strike that relationship with God that much stronger. It requires our efforts to do so. As opposed to Esav, Esav comes from the word aseh, asui. Asui in Hebrew means made. Esav, in a sense, was a made man. He did not feel that there was the need to further develop, that there was a need to further endeavor and to demonstrate an earnestness for his own growth, but rather he is a complete product. He is finished with regards to his development and with regards certainly to his rapport that he could potentially or could have potentially made with God. In our world, from a Jewish perspective, we always subscribe to the teachings of our forefathers. We always find it necessary to conquer, to immerse ourselves in actively participating and demonstrating and furthering our faith in God. We know that there has to be tending to and nurturing that faith and that rapport that we so long for. And finally, we also understand that without our longing for a permanence with God, without our understanding that in this world we are temporary dwellers within a tent, and we long to make that tent into a permanent structure with regards to our spiritual service and divinity and relationship with God, that is the Jewish approach. that is who we are. I very often, and certainly of late, have been speaking about, and no holds barred, about the terrible situation in this country, in Israel, with regards to mental health, the amount of efforts that we have to be involved in, the long road that we have to take in order to ensure that it is repaired, that it is restructured, and hopefully that it can offer people salvation. But let us understand, as the famous saying goes, Rome wasn't built in one day. Neither are the people of Israel, and neither is the land of Israel, and neither is, or certainly not, the efforts of mental health and mental wellness. It is a road that we have to take. We have to plow forward. We have to disseminate knowledge. We have to break stigmas, and slowly but surely, I am confident that if we learn to do so, ultimately that tent that is temporary now will serve as a permanent structure of protection, of health, of well-being, and of offering people solace and ultimately salvation. This is the Jewish way. It is what the Torah reveals to us through this week's Torah portion, the Torah way, and what Gila has consistently revealed to us in a personal way, the Gila way. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you once again for joining us. Please remember to consider subscribing to the page below and send me your comments. I will get back to you. Have a great day.